Welcome to Totem Pole Nation. It's Real Coach Lambo here, but also we have my former friend. Actually, he's still my friend, by the way. But I went to middle school with this guy. He got his own podcast on Spotify, Showdown, Rundown. I'm trying to tell you, he's one of the smart football minds as a kid. He goes to University of UVA. My man right here, Hayden Vozar, who's literally my middle school teammate. I don't know, I was a backup quarterback, a wide receiver. But Hayden, how you been? It's been a long time since I even reacted to you. Goddamn it, it's been like 2014.
Yeah, man, it's good to be on the podcast. Thanks for having me on first and foremost on Totem Pole Sports. This podcast you're doing here is just crazy. The growth has been crazy to see. I mean, I've been following on YouTube every now and then and just like, checking in and listening to some of the videos and watching those. And it's great to see, those little clips just blowing up. So yeah, great thing that you're doing here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Hayden Vozar, like Tyler said. I host FirstDown RunDown on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts. It's out on pretty much every platform, whatever you listen to. Yeah, we basically, so first down is one word and then rundown is one word as well. So it's two separate words, first down, then rundown. And it's me and my brother. We just kind of talk about any sports, pretty much everything and anything sports. We talk about mainly football during football season, just because we're football guys at heart. And Tyler knows that, that's how we met. We played football in middle school together. So, yeah, so me and my brother, we just talk about football during football season, mainly college and NFL. And then during the off season of football, we kind of branch out into NBA and NHL. We talk about golf sometimes too. So if you're into that, you can hear that on First Time Rundown as well. So we try to touch up on at least like 3 or 4 sports per episode, and then we try to upload, I would say, twice a week, but it kind of varies because I'm still in college, and then my brother, he works full time at a bank, so it kind of varies. Sometimes we only get one posted per week, but we try to get at least one posted per week. Sometimes two. That's kind of like the schedule that we like to follow. So, yeah, it's a really fun time. It's just kind of something that I'm doing on the side right now. I am a full time student at UVA, like Tyler said. So that's kind of taking up most of my time. I'm also I'm an assistant recruiter at UVA football. So I work in the recruiting department, kind of just as an intern there, helping out the director of scouting there, and kind of just working in the office, trying to get the UVA football program back on track, because it's a little bit lackluster right now, but yeah, we're trying to get things right there. So that's just a little bit about me. Oh yeah, and then at UVA, I'm currently studying media studies and French. I was telling Tyler right before we started that the whole French thing, I don't really know what I'm doing with that. I just had a bunch of credits coming out of high school for it, so that's not really something that I really plan to continue with after college, but we'll see. You never really know what's going to happen. And then I'm trying to get into the sports media world / sports business world, just kind of trying to put myself out there, especially with the whole UVA football recruiting situation. I'm just kind of trying to get into the business and make connections and network and things like that, so that I can kind of hopefully make my way up to some kind of NFL deal or something like that, and get in the business side, like the front office side of hopefully the NFL, maybe some golf thrown in there. I've applied to a couple of USGA internships for this summer, so we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me and my podcast.
Man, well, first of all, that's great. Now the first question I really want to ask you is, how was life like after middle school? Like, I know you played football your sixth grade year. What was it about like your middle school through high school? Did you continue to play football? Like, what happened with the whole playing career of football? Did things go well or did things go south?
Yeah, so it was yeah, so like I said, me and Tyler met playing football in middle school. He was in 8th grade and I was in 6th grade. And then after that, after Tyler left, after his 8th grade year, middle school football was just it's kind of what it is. I mean, our team sucked. We were really bad. I think we won maybe 1 or 2 games while I was there throughout my 3 years that we played. It was my first 3 years of playing football too. I didn't play like Pee Wee football or rec football before that. And so, 6th grade was my first year playing football. And so that kind of introduced me to the sport. I knew I always wanted to play. It's always been a passion of mine because my dad was really the one that kind of introduced it to me when I was little. And so, yeah, so my first time playing was 6th grade, and then continued throughout middle school. And then after that, high school, I went to Henrico High School, and that's where I kind of got, well, not kind of got better. I got a lot better because, there's better coaching and our team overall was better. But I started off playing JV in ninth grade as a center. So my brother was actually the varsity center, and he was a pretty big kid. He was probably like, I don't know, 5'11", 240 or something like that. So I mean, he was a really big kid. But then me on the other hand, I was probably like 5'6", 140, and they had me playing center on the JV team just because my brother was playing varsity center. So I don't know why they put me there. I was a pretty skinny kid playing center, but I kind of held my own. Stuck my nose in there, and we ended up going. I think it was like 9-2 that season, or no, yeah, no. JV doesn't have playoffs, so I think it was 8-2. We played 10 total games, and we had a great season that season. And then after that season, I made probably the most improbable transition you could ever make in football, and I transitioned from playing center to quarterback. So it's a pretty crazy pipeline there because the center is the quarterback's best friend. But yeah, I threw one day in practice that in the coming off season after my freshman year of high school, and the coaches kind of liked it, and they were like, hey, he's a pretty smart kid, so let's try him out at quarterback. And so I ended up being the backup that year, my 10th grade year for varsity quarterback. And then 11th grade, I was the backup again because we had a guy transfer in from St. Francis, which is actually one of the best high schools in the nation. But we had a quarterback transfer in from St. Francis, and so I was back up to him again in 11th grade, and then he ended up going to the University of Florida on a full ride, I think. But then he had some stuff go on, and so he had to transfer to Jackson State and everything like that. So finally, my senior year, 12th grade, I got to start at quarterback. It was me and another kid that kind of shared games. Like we kind of shared the workload a little bit. I mean, as you know, if you know football at all, a two quarterback system never works. So if you have two quarterbacks, you might as well have zero quarterbacks. So it didn't really work out too well. We went 6-5 in my last season. So it was my worst season at Henrico, kind of by a landslide, but we still had a over 500 record. So yeah, it was just a great experience. Like if anybody's out there that is younger and isn't really sure about playing sports or football in specific, do it. It's a great way to meet people, have like the greatest memories of your life, and yeah, I mean it's just a great way to kind of keep yourself busy, keep yourself in shape. I was in the best shape of my life in high school. I'm trying to get back into that kind of shape, but I probably won't ever be anywhere near that. So yeah, so if you're ever thinking about playing sports and you're kind of hesitant about it, do it because it's a great way to kind of keep everything intact and keep your life where it should be. And that's honestly why I love sports so much today, and that's why I've always been a sports fan, but like starting my podcast was really a way to kind of keep up with my passion for sports after I got out of high school and after I stopped playing football, because after that, it was kind of like I needed a void filled in my life. That void was kind of like having sports. And so I decided to kind of start up the podcast to just have kind of like a personal project that I could work on to continue my love for sports. So yeah, I would say that football was, my football career was kind of on the shorter side, shorter than I would have liked, but hey, I mean, you can't really have it all. I was a little bit too small to play in college. I had a couple, I think I had a couple like D2 offers, but I didn't really want to go to D2 school to play football. I would have rather had, go to UVA and kind of focus on my academics and try to better my career that way. So that's about it.
Tell us the mindset of that senior season into deciding your future. Because like me coaching high school football at LC Bird, we sometimes just have players that just in their head they think they can go D1, and sometimes when you don't have the grades, you got to take D2. Now I know you're pretty smart in school. You probably had like I say a 3.5, 3.7, maybe a 4.0. But tell us the the mindset of you had your worst senior as like a quarterback, and then you're not sure whether you wanted to play football. Was it the easy decision or was it a hard decision?
Yeah, it was a pretty hard decision. My head coach actually came to me one day. I think it was right before my senior season, and he basically told me, he was like, "Hey, I've had a couple coaches kind of contact me through email about any kids that we possibly have that would want to play in college, right? And these are kind of smaller schools, and so he asked me, he was like, I don't want to kind of leave them in the dark. I don't want to like lead them on with something that they may not be able to have. And so I just want to know if you want to play in college. And so on the spot, I was like, I don't have an answer. I have no idea if I want to play in college, because at that point, again, going into my senior season, I knew I was going to start at least in some capacity that next year in my senior season. So I didn't really know how that would fare out. I had played in varsity games, like plenty of varsity games beforehand as a backup. But again, that's against like teams that were kind of bad that we were already, blowing out. And so they just put in the reserves, including me at quarterback. So I had experience on the varsity level, but I knew that even D2 college level is like a whole different ball game. And so I began to kind of think about that more and more. And so I told my coach, hey, I don't have an answer right now, but I'll have an answer to you by the end of this week. And so I thought about it a lot, and it did take that whole week. I remember it super vividly. I'm glad that you asked this, Tyler, because yeah, it took me about a whole week to kind of ponder on it and think about if I really wanted to play in college. And so at the end of the day, I told myself, I was like, hey, I've always been a kid that thrives in the academic world. I'm lucky to say that. And I'm lucky to say that I'm able to receive an education like this, because, a lot of kids out there aren't able to receive this kind of education. A lot of kids around the world aren't able to have, the same opportunities. And a lot of kids in the US even aren't able to have the same opportunities that I do. So I'm always grateful for those. And I always like to kind of, keep myself humble with that. And so I looked at that and I said, hey, if I'm able to have these kinds of opportunities, and if I'm able to get into UVA, which I didn't know at that point if I was going to get into UVA, but I had hope. And so I kind of just told my coach, I was like, hey, I don't think I'm going to play in college if I'm not going to get a big D1 offer, which I knew I wasn't going to get. I knew, if I wasn't going to get one of those, then it's not really worth it to play in college, because I knew that if I could get into a good school like UVA, I think UVA is 25th and nationally ranked in terms of academics. I knew that if I could get into a school like that, that would probably be the route that I would want to go. And it sucks to, kind of end my sports career after high school. Nobody really wants to do that. But yeah, I mean, it was the right choice for me. I know now. And it was a tough decision, but at the end of the day, that's what I chose to do. So
I'm glad you chose the right decision. You say you've been at UVA since the COVID year. So I assume it's 2023. I guess you've been there for 2 years. I guess I've heard during the COVID year, there's some players that get that extra eligibility. I guess whether you play sports or not, correct me if I'm wrong. But what was that transition to UVA like? How's the campus at UVA, and do you like what you're doing right
so I think the extra year of eligibility is just for sports players. I mean, I know that there's like grad programs and everything that you can do that's an extra year of college, but yeah, in terms of the eligibility, I think that's just for sports players. But the transition into college was pretty rough, because, well, my senior year of high school, I didn't even get to finish it. That weekend of like March 13th or whatever it was, when the whole country shut down because of COVID in 2020, that's when my school shut down. And so I didn't go to school for the rest of the year from mid-March until it would have been mid-June when I would have graduated. I never walked across the stage on graduation. So my graduation was literally just me sitting in my living room watching a slideshow of all the kids that graduated, and they just had like their name and their picture, and they just went through the slideshow on the TV, and that's basically it. They like live streamed it. I watched it from my living room. So that was probably a pretty unique experience compared to what what most people have as their high school graduation. But yeah, that's another thing. Like, a lot of people ask me if I was really bummed out about not being able to walk for graduation. It's like, yeah, in a sense, I guess, but at the same time, again, it is what it is. And like, compared to the grand scheme of things, I mean, not being able to walk across the stage at graduation is a pretty, I feel like a pretty, something that people might like take for granted, but I feel like it's not really that important. As long as you graduate, as long as you get your papers, that's fine with me. So yeah, I was kind of fine with that. And then going into college was kind of rough. It was just, there were so many restrictions, especially at UVA. I've heard about other colleges, like other colleges didn't really require their kids to wear masks and stuff like that. Even even early 2021, like some colleges had already lifted their mask mandate, which UVA didn't lift theirs until I think March of 2022. So so basically my whole first year of college was all online. I had all online classes for every class. And that was a little bit rough. And then it was just hard to meet people. That's the biggest thing. Like my college experience was definitely hindered by that. And but you can't really do anything about it. But it also kind of sucks because like I feel like I would have a lot better of an experience if I had a better first year, because a lot of people say like, and I think this is true personally, but again, I didn't have the experience, but like most people will tell you that, whatever college you go to doesn't matter. In the first 2 weeks of your freshman year, you're going to meet more people than you do the rest of your college experience throughout the rest of your 4 years, which I think is probably true. You meet so many people in your freshman, in like just the beginning of your freshman year of college. And I wasn't really able to do that. There wasn't any events that were put on. Like I couldn't really socialize with people except for my roommates. So, so I kind of have a small circle now at UVA, which is kind of tough, but that's kind of, I've always kind of rode like that. Like I've always kind of been a small circle guy where I don't really, I don't really like to have too many friends. I like to have my close friends and then, the people that I stay in touch with for long periods of time. And so that's kind of how it's been. And in terms of like academics at UVA, it hasn't really hindered much. COVID hasn't. Every restriction now is lifted. So like everything's been fine really since kind of like halfway through my sophomore year of college. So that's good at least. But yeah, my first year of college was probably like one of the weirdest parts of my life because it was just so different than what I was told. Like going into college, people would tell me, oh, college is this, college is that. Like you're gonna have so much fun, like parties, this and that. And my first semester of college, I like sat in my dorm for basically the whole entire semester with my roommate, and we didn't like and we love to have fun, but like we didn't really do anything because it was just like you couldn't walk around grounds or you couldn't walk around the campus without getting yelled at by a security official for like being in a group of 5 or more. Like it was ridiculous. So again, it was for a good reason, I guess, but compared to what most people have in their first year of college, I didn't really have that experience. So like I told Tyler this before we started recording. I'm kind of ready to get out into the real world and start working and everything like that. College is great, but yeah, I mean my experience has been a lot different than what a lot of people have had.
Well, here's my favorite thing I want to talk about. Man, when you first announced your podcast, the thing on social media, First Down Rundown, your first episode was February 15th, 2021. Can you tell us how and why you wanted to start your sports channel? Like at that time, this is like after COVID or before COVID or whatever, or after COVID, basically. It was still COVID in 2021, but
Yeah.
your first episode, I was very impressed. Can you tell us, like, how what made you get in the mind, like, hey, I need my own sports podcast?
Yeah. So me and one of my best friends actually started it. So I didn't start it with my brother. This is a pretty cool story here. So February 2021, one of my friends and we kind of were just thinking about something. We were just hanging out one day and we were like, yo, it'd be really cool to start a podcast. And that was kind of like the popular thing to do back then. Now, I mean, it's super popular to start a podcast now, but back then I would say that it was kind of on the come up. And so the podcast industry was already kind of saturated at the time, which is why we haven't really been able to see as much growth as we would have liked. And so essentially what we were thinking was like, all right, we need to kind of differentiate ourselves, right? We can't do everything that somebody else has already done. Like we need to do something that's new, that's fun, but we also need to kind of introduce ourselves to it in a way that we know best. And so we just started talking about football. Like our first episode was I think it was talking about Russell Wilson, the Russell Wilson situation with like him maybe getting traded or something like that. So we were talking about Russell Wilson and like all these different, I think like the Dolphins too. We were talking about their situation back in 2021. So yeah, we were talking about a bunch of different stuff. And we started off trying to like make creative titles with making like play on words with some of the players' names and everything like that. Like I know our first episode is named Dangerous Things, and because we were talking about Russ Wilson. So yeah, it's just like it was just things like that we kind of tried differentiate ourselves with. But at first we were seeing some pretty good, some pretty good listener base. But then it kind of fell off a little bit from there. And then I think we made like 6 episodes in season 1, and then it kind of just fell off. Like our schedules didn't meet up. We were, we're still really good friends, but we just didn't really we weren't really clicking in terms of, when we could record and when we could edit and everything like that. And so it was just kind of tough to continue that. So I think by May of 2021, we stopped completely recording any podcasts. And so I think, yeah, there's only 6 episodes in season 1 of First Down Rundown. And then I think I did one episode talking about like college football and the expansion of the college football playoff. I think like the possibility of it, because back then, I mean, the expansion was like kind of unheard. I mean, it was mentioned, but it wasn't even really talked about that much, and now it's confirmed. So we talked about, me and one of my buddies, Mitchell, we talked about the college football playoff expansion back in August of 2021, which was pretty early. And we were just talking about like all the ramifications, like the money ramifications and everything like that. And then it comes to November of 2021, and I still hadn't posted another episode. Again, only 6 episodes out in season 1. And so my brother texts, and he's probably like, he probably knows, he knows more about sports than I do. I mean, he's like, his life is sports, and he works in a bank, but like, I know that in his free time at his bank, and I'm going to call him out right here, I know that in his free time, he's watching sports on his computer. So like, he's always watching some kind of sports. Doesn't matter if it's golf, football, basketball, anything. So yeah, so big shout out to him. But he actually approached me, and he texted me one day, and he was out of the blue. I mean, I hadn't texted this guy in like a week probably, and he texted me out of the blue, and he's like, "Hey, if you want to start up First Down Rundown again, I'd be happy to be a co-host." And I was like, dude, this is the best text I've ever received. Like it made me so happy, because again, I mean, it was something that I was passionate about when we first started it in February of 2021, but I didn't really know how it would go. And then by November of 2021, almost a year later, when we only had 6 episodes published, I was like, yeah, it's kind of a dud, it's kind of fallen off. And so huge props to my brother for coming to me with that, and just saying, hey, I can help recover this. And so we ended up doing that in November. We started season 2 of First Down Rundown, and then we kind of decided to start doing 2 episodes per week. We were really good with keeping up with that schedule back then. Again, now it's kind of more shaky because we have more things on our plate. He's had to move a couple times throughout the past year, so it's been hard to kind of keep up with our schedule. But yeah, I'm still so glad that he asked to recover it with me. And we've had on a few guests ever since. I mean, we haven't really had that many guests on. We kind of just fly solo. And we do solo episodes every now and then. So like, if one of us is busy, the other person will just talk for an hour. And that's pretty tough usually. It's like having to talk for an hour straight, and trying to make it so that I don't have to edit for 3 hours afterwards. That's always pretty tough. But yeah, I mean, like I said, we talk about anything sports related. Definitely having Tyler on in the future. I mean, him having me on Totem Pole Sports is awesome. So yeah, so definitely looking forward to having him on First Down Rundown. I'm sure he'll be he'll be happy to come on First Down Rundown. So that will be sometime in the near future, I believe. And so yeah, just kind of rolling with it now. I think we had 64 episodes in season 2 of First Down Rundown. And the way that we do it is we split up seasons by the NFL season. So basically, when a new NFL season starts, we start a new season of First Down Rundown. So that's why we're on season 3 right now. We had season 2, obviously last year, and then season 3 started back in late August when the NFL preseason started. So yeah, we kind of just go by the NFL season, and then after NFL season is done, we talk about NBA, NHL, college basketball. March Madness was super fun to do last year. That's something that I'm looking forward to doing this year, is just talking about the tournament again when it comes to be mid-March. So yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to. And then obviously, like, Super Bowl is huge, and NFL playoffs are huge too. And so yeah, it's a really fun time. Kind of sad that football season's almost over, because it's the best time of the year during football season, and it's the best time of the year, especially for the podcast too. But yeah, we're trying to follow NBA and NHL and those other sports that aren't football more, so that we can talk about it more on the podcast. That's something that the podcast has given me, is like, it's given me the motivation to kind of follow those sports more, because usually during NBA season I don't really follow the regular season that much. Like, playoffs is when I start watching, and same with NHL. I usually only watch the playoffs, but I watch a lot of it, and so I kind of have to learn everything that happened during the regular season while the playoffs are going on. But now with First Down Rundown, I've kind of enabled myself to, or like motivated myself to watch more of the regular season of both of those sports. So that's something that's come out of it.
Well, I would gladly accept your offer. My schedule is more freely now than what when it was. I think when I first asked you, I think my schedule was complicated, and I think you were just kind of sequence or whatever. But I'll accept your
Yeah.
offer. I would love to be on your show, and you come on mine, of course, every week once I figure out something. I post every day, and I'm a coach or whatever. But I got to ask you this: how come you didn't give up? And I'm not saying this in a disrespectful way, because most people would give up, because you mentioned that you weren't posting, you kind of just died down. And you said it died down like 3 times, because you was like, I was looking at
Yeah.
your episodes, like you'll post like every 3 days, and then one time you ain't post for like 6 months, and I was just like, does this guy really love it, or is he gonna give up? Tell us why you did not give up.
Yeah. That's a great question. Again, these are really good questions you're asking. But yeah, I mean, I would say that it was something that, like, I think I needed somebody else to really push me to do it. Again, I knew that I wanted to do it. I knew that it was something that I wanted to do in order to, keep up my passion for sports, and keep me watching sports, really, other than just fantasy football. Like, that was really the only thing that was keeping me watching football, after I stopped playing football. But yeah, like, I knew that I wanted to start the podcast, mainly focusing on football, but then I knew I wanted to branch out to other sports. And so my best friend that I started the podcast with, he was more of a football guy. Like, he knows about other sports, but he didn't really want to talk about other sports on the podcast. And so I think that was another thing that kind of led to a little bit of us parting ways. At first was kind of like, yeah, our schedules were both busy. We couldn't really make the time to meet up and record and then edit afterwards, and then post together. But we also, I think, had different visions for the podcast. And so having that happen was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I didn't want to let it stop me from continuing the podcast, but also, like, I had to kind of question my decision on whether or not I actually wanted to continue the podcast and talk about other sports. Because again, like, after football season, and after free agency is the biggest thing that happens in football, and during the off season, during those months of March and April and everything like that. But like, after after free agency, it's like, what do you talk about? Like, over the summer, there's not much to talk about for football. I mean, there's you can always talk about football technically, but then you gotta get into the weeds of things, and you really gotta kind of dig deep down into the technicalities of things. And we just didn't really have the time to do that at the time. And so, and so the way that I kind of kept my motivation for it was, right, I recorded that one episode in August with one of my buddies. We talked about college football playoff. We talked about more of like the logistics stuff. Like, we didn't really talk about the sport. We talked about the money that it was going to bring in, all of the effects that it would have on not only the players, but also like viewership and everything like that. So that kind of re-sparked my interest in maybe continuing with some episodes. But again, I didn't really know anybody, or I didn't really like have anybody that I was close with at the time, that I was talking to, almost every day with. I didn't really have anybody that I was sure I could really get this done with. Because again, I thought that my best friend at the time, was going to be with it. And so when we had kind of different viewpoints of it, I was like, I don't really know if this is for me. Like, maybe this is a sign that I should just kind of give it up. Like, maybe this is kind of something that, that happened for a reason, where like we parted ways. And like I said, we're still best friends now, but like, it just didn't really work out for the podcast. So I was kind of telling myself, like, okay, maybe that's why. But yeah, when my brother texted me, like, that immediately, like, I was back on it. I was like, yes, let's start next week. And so we started recording two episodes a week, every week, for probably the next like 2 months. And we stayed on that schedule. We didn't miss a beat, even through the holidays and everything like that. Cause again, we we started in November of 2021. And then I think we posted twice a week, every single week until like mid-January, something like that. So yeah, we had, you know, we were just constantly putting out episodes. And that's where I really built a love for it, was because I was like, okay, if I can do this, if I can sustain this consistency for 2 months, I can, I can keep on doing it for however long. And so now, obviously, yeah, the schedule is a little bit whack. It's a little bit off from that 2 times a week, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like, it's not a hassle anymore. I used to think of it more as a hassle, like, oh man, I got to go record this podcast. And that's not how it should be. It should be something that you're excited to do. It's something that you enjoy doing. And so that's kind of how I knew that I wanted to continue it, was when it started to become fun, and when it started to become something that I enjoyed doing and something that I enjoyed working for and preparing for. Because I think I mean, Tyler, you know this, like a lot of people probably think like, oh, a podcast, you just go on there and you talk for, a half an hour, or whatever, and then you post. It's like, no, you got to prepare for it. You got to do research. You got to, think of things to say. You got to write out topics, everything like that. And then you talk about it, and then you record. And then after that, I don't know about you, Tyler, but I mean, I spend a pretty good amount of time editing my podcast, and then, putting music and transitions and everything like that, cutting out unnecessary stuff. So like, there's a lot that goes into it. And then, you've got your whole other life, or all the other parts of your life to kind of worry about at the same time. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like, it was tough to kind of get it going. And Tyler, you're right. I mean, I went in and out of really kind of having a passion for it. But then once my brother texted me to start it up again, and he kind of gave me, because like my brother's always been somebody in my life that, like if he's passionate about something, I'm passionate about it too. I've always kind of followed in his footsteps. And so with this, when he came to me and was like, hey, well, when he came to me and asked me if we could start it up again, that told me he saw something in what I was doing before, that he saw some, some kind of potential, or some kind of something good in what I was doing before with my best friend. And so he wanted to start that up and be a part of that. And so that's kind of what really motivated me to keep up with it.
Well, thank God you didn't quit. And here's why I say this. Thank God. When I first heard your episode, I was like, this guy's good. He knows what he's talking about. Now here's a story behind this now. I watched like most of your episodes. I'm like, this guy knows what he's talking about. I had the same vision of having a podcast. Now, I don't know if everyone's going to be on Spotify, Apple, whatever. But to be honest, I was going to start a podcast in July. But my thing is, I didn't take action, and I was dumb like other people. I wanted to wait on somebody to do something. And I'm like, dude, I don't know why I'm waiting on them to start something. And turned out it didn't work out. And now we're in 2023. They don't have a podcast. And now I'm getting hate for having 20K subscribers in 92 days. But it just led to October, where I was in football season. I think we lost to Manchester by 1 point or something like that. And one of my mentors and coaches will say, okay, you know a lot about the Patriots. First video blows up. Who made Belichick? I said Tom Brady made Belichick. It was like a little 2-3 minute video or something like that. That had 4K views. And the way we just grew, I hit a milestone recently. I hit 500 videos made in 89 days. And I don't know, I was the fastest to 10K subscribers in less than 2 months. And now I reached from 10K to 20K, I think, in like 15 some days or something. And I just had a team around me that was like, all right, we're doing it together. I got people. It's my show technically, but it's like I had people around me that was like, you need to just do this. Like, you know about football. I knew about all 32 head coaches and starting quarterbacks. They was like, why you don't have a podcast if you know all 32 head coaches and starting quarterbacks, and you know more about the Patriots than anybody else? So I was like, I say thanks to you, because when I started watching you, I was like, you know what, I got to do something. I can't wait on anybody to do anything. And now look where I'm at now. Now I'm gonna try to help you blow up now, because this is the best. This is the best show on Spotify. Like, it really is. But I want to get into some football stuff, because there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that think they know football, but they don't. But you know football.
Exactly.
But I don't like watching ESPN sometimes, because half these people ain't never played football in their life. They never coached football. And I think what I'm different from my channel is I played the game and I coached the game. So I've seen things from the inside and see things from the outside. and all this other stuff. But I want to talk about first. We're going to go into college football. I want to talk about this national championship game, TCU versus Georgia. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts on that? I'm going to take Georgia. I think we underestimated Stetson Bennett for 2 years for some reason because we underestimated him last year, and I picked Alabama to win, and he's torching it. And then Georgia's down with 38-24 in the third quarter, and I guess the roughing the passer or I don't know necessary hit on Marvin Harrison Jr. should have been a penalty or whatever it was, but it wasn't a penalty. So what you thinking about that game? You got Stetson Bennett, Max Duggan, two Heisman candidates. I think Max Duggan is the better quarterback because he can throw, he can run, but I'm taking Georgia and Kirby Smart. I think they're going to run it back to back for the first time since Nick Saban has done. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to say is the spread for this game is the biggest spread that coming into the game is the biggest spread that a national championship has ever had in the history of college football. So it's Georgia minus 13 right now. They're 13-point favorites, which in college football, like 13-point favorites, that's kind of on, well, it's kind of like a medium spread. I mean, in the NFL, you never really see anything higher than like 13, and even that's pretty rare. You never really see anything higher than like 10 or 11 really. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the betting world. I don't bet myself because I'm not 21 yet, but my brother talks about it all the time, especially on our podcast. And so that's, something else that we feature a lot too. But yeah, so like Georgia's 13-point favorites here. And the first thing that I'm looking at is how this Georgia defense performed against Ohio State. We got to look at that because they let up 41 points against Ohio State, right? This Georgia defense that's supposed to be the best in all of college football. And they are. Like they have the most talent by far out of any college football defense there is. And it's not even close. But what I'm saying is Ohio State, yes, they have the best offense in all of college football. So that was a great matchup to see. But Ohio State didn't have Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's their best wide receiver. He didn't really he played like 2 downs this whole season because of injuries and hamstrings or whatever like that. And then, like you said, Marvin Harrison Jr. got knocked out in the first quarter of the Georgia game, and so he was out for the rest of the game. And so basically, Ohio State played this whole game without their 2 best receivers, and they've got C.J. Stroud at quarterback. They've got I forget the left tackle's name, but I think he's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft this year. So they've got a good offensive line as well. They've got a pretty decent defense, but they're off. Like the Ohio State offense is what this team does well. And the fact that they were able to put up 41 points on Georgia's defense with their best 2 receivers out, like that's pretty crazy. I don't know if that says more about the Ohio State offense or the Georgia defense, but I think it says something at least about the Georgia defense. And so what I'm looking at this TCU Georgia game is it's going to be another story of offense versus defense. I think that the Georgia offense is fine, but they're not going to be a team that's going to be able to like come back from a deficit, in my opinion, especially if their defense is frazzled. I think if TCU gets out to an early start in this game, people are going to be swallowing their words a little bit. They're going to be taken aback what they're saying about TCU. I don't think that Georgia should be 13-point favorites. Will Georgia still win? I mean, I'm going to go with Georgia here as well. I think they'll be able to take the second in a row, but I don't think it's going to be 13 points. Do I think it's going to be more than a touchdown? I don't even know if it's going to be more than a touchdown. I think that Georgia might slip up here and there. And again, against an offense that is as explosive as TCU's offense with Max Duggan, and they've got that guy Johnston at wide receiver. He's like 6'4", 240. He's huge. Yeah, Quentin Johnston. Yeah, and then they've got Kendre Miller as well at running back, who's questionable for this game. So that's going to be huge as well. If he's able to play, he's their starting running back number 3. If he's able to play, I think he'll be a game changer. He was in the Michigan game for sure. So we'll have to wait and see. But I don't think that Georgia will win by a lot, but I do still think that they'll be able to pull it out just because, again, we can't really deny the talent on that defense. I think that maybe some of those scoring plays that Ohio State had on them were flukes. And, it's pretty unfortunate for Ohio State that it ended that way. Like they should have won that game. Let's be honest. It was a 40-yard field goal to win it, and the dude missed it. And it's like, at the end of the day, it should be Ohio State and TCU in this championship, but Georgia made it there, maybe by destiny. I don't know. It might be the football gods trying to tell us something that they're going to win a second straight, but I don't know. I think that Georgia's going to be able to pull it out, but it's going to be closer than a lot of people think.
There's two things when you was mentioning Ohio State. Now, first
Yeah.
of all, I think if Kirby Smart ain't called that timeout on 4th and 4, that was gonna go for a fake and convert the game. I think Ohio State would have won. Second of
Yeah.
all, why didn't Ryan Day run the football to even
I
get
don't know.
closer to field goal range? He threw the ball on 2nd and 11 and was tipped, and I thought it was gonna be intercepted. And I think he put his kicker in a bad position to even kick a 50-yard field goal from the left hash. And you know college kids can't kick. And then here's the
Yeah.
funny
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
Here's another blasphemy question. It's not from me, but it's from other stupid fans that know nothing about football like us. A lot of people say fire Ryan Day, but his record is 45-6. Why would you fire Ryan Day?
Yeah. No, I have no, I've heard that too. And it's like, and people are saying it's because every time he gets to the college football playoff or some kind of postseason game, he falls apart. But it's like, yeah, he's 45-6. And if he keeps on getting you there, at one point you're going to win something. Right. So it's like, you just got to, and it's, again, it's not the coach's fault. Like this is something that Matt and I talk about on our podcast all the time. It's like, we hate how college football coaches are given zero chances whatsoever. They're fired after 4 games. And it's like, dude, that makes absolutely no sense. There's got to be something else going on that's wrong. Again, sometimes it's all in the coach, and I can understand that, but if you're going to give a coach less than a year to prove themselves, that's not enough time. Because again, you if you've got 1 year to recruit guys, 1 year to kind of get a whole game plan going on, who's coaching what, and how you're going to run your offense and your defense and everything like that. That's not enough time at all. And so I hate when coaches get fired after even after 1 or 2 years. It's like, dude, if you can't, I mean, at a program like Ohio State, if you can prove yourself and consistently get to the postseason, consistently get to the playoff, and yeah, you may lose every time, but you're at least getting there. That I feel like that's most of what matters. Again, winning the championship is the ultimate goal, and that's what everybody wants to do. But when you've got powerhouses in the SEC like Alabama, like Georgia, like Tennessee's on the come up right now, I mean, it's almost impossible to compete with those guys without having a crazy season, like LSU season back in 2019 or whatever like that. So it's just, I don't know. I think that the whole Ryan Day being fired talk is, it's a bunch of blasphemy. I agree.
Well, it's also, here's the thing, it's another bunch of blasphemy too. I think Jim Harbaugh gets a lot of blasphemy too. They said go ahead and get rid of him because he couldn't beat Ohio State. But he beats Ohio State 2 years in a
Yeah.
row. 2 years in a row. But then it's like, oh, we have to fire him possibly because he might go to the NFL. I mean, he recently had talks with the Panthers a couple days ago. But then also another stat, he's lost 6 straight bowl games. So he's 0-6 in bowl games since
Yeah.
2016. So should are we? I'm comfortable with Jim Harbaugh. I mean, Michigan won't that. I mean, Michigan has improved since he's got there. I mean, they had back-to-back 12-win seasons. He keeps saying he doesn't know what the future holds. If he doesn't know, he wants to go back to the NFL. I think he goes back to the NFL because he has unfinished business with the 49ers of how they just got really rid of him, and they had a good system.
Yeah.
When he went to 3 straight NFC Championship games between 2011 and 2013 with a guy named Colin Kaepernick. Now, if it weren't for Jim Harbaugh, it would be no Colin Kaepernick. There's a reason why Adam Smith ain't there. But how do you feel about Jim Harbaugh? Do you think he stays at Michigan or he goes when it's the right time?
Yeah, I've heard the same thing, that if he gets an NFL offer, then he's gone, that he's going to leave. And I don't really blame him. I think you're right. I think that if he gets any kind of shot at going back to the NFL, he's going to take it. Even if he leaves a team like Michigan, who's had 2 straight 12-win seasons, like, I think he's still going to go back to the NFL if he gets an offer from there. I don't know if Michigan's going to fire him. I think that you can't really fire a guy like this. I mean, yeah, he's lost 6 straight bowl games for 6 straight years, but at the end of the day, again, it's about winning. It's about winning games. And I mean, if you're not in the college football playoff, let's be honest, a bowl game doesn't really matter. Like, a bowl game win, it's half of your starters probably aren't going to play anyway if you've got guys going to the NFL. So, right, like, at that point, you can't really blame him for that. If he's winning in the regular season, I feel like that's what really matters, because that's when you have all of your players, assumably. And so, one thing that I would say about Jim Harbaugh is, I think his first 5 years at Michigan, he had like barely over a 500 record, which was really weird to see, because we saw him go from the 49ers to Michigan, and everybody thought that, oh, Michigan's back to glory. They're going to be great again. Like they're going to be back to their old season form, like when Tom Brady was there. Like it's and everybody thought that was what it was going to be, but then it's like they didn't have good seasons. Like for 5 straight years, they were just pretty bad. I can't remember his record for those 5 years, but again, I think it was just over 500, and that's really terrible for especially for a college coach coming from the NFL. So that was, in my opinion, like what he's done over the past 2 years, coming off of 5 seasons of really mediocre play. I think that he's doing a great job at Michigan. But again, I don't think it's a decision that Michigan's going to make. It's a decision that he's going to make. If he's going to go back to the NFL, it's going to be him leaving. I don't think that Michigan's going to fire him, because I think they'd be crazy to do so. They'd be crazy to make that huge decision to try to go out and find another coach that's going to continue the success that they've had over the past 2 years. I don't think they're going to do that. They're going to probably try to get him to stay as much as they can. But again, if he gets that Carolina Panthers offer or whatever, then I think that he'll probably go back to the NFL.
Tell us how you feel about primetime Deion Sanders. Now he goes from Jackson State for 3 years. He's in the SWAC championship 2 years in a row. Now everybody's calling him a sellout and all this other stuff, but he's turning around Jackson State. There's a documentary that's out, Coach Prime, 2 episodes. I don't know if the other episodes came out yet, but I watched the 2 episodes of Prime, and he really changed the program around, but he was underfunded and people were stealing his stuff. Do you think he's going to have a winning season at Colorado? And I feel like he made the right decision by going to somewhere that's unknown. And I just hate it when people's like, he's not going to have a winning season. But Prime is a winner. I think Prime can win his first year in Colorado.
Yeah, no, I think you're completely right. Again, I mean, he totally changed the whole culture at Jackson State. While, and again, that documentary is a really good example of like how much he did for that university, because again, in HBCU that he put on the map, which is great. He's bringing in all these crazy recruits, like Travis Hunter was the number 1 cornerback recruit coming out of I think the 2021 class or something like that. And he got him to go to Jackson State. It's like, that's awesome. That kind of stuff you love to see. It's actually pretty similar. I think Mikey Williams, who's a high school basketball player right now. I think he may actually, well, I don't know if he's committed to a Power 5 school, but I think he was thinking about committing to an HBCU, which was big news, and that was going to be great as well. I think he's actually switched up, which is kind of that's kind of not too fond of that. But yeah, I mean, it was great what Coach Prime was doing at Jackson State, and I think you're right. I think at Colorado he's gonna kill it. Do I think that they're gonna have like an undefeated season, or even like a 10-2 season? No, yeah, they're not. But I mean, yeah, Colorado's. I think it's a great, like, again, it's a school that nobody really thinks of. And they had like an absolutely abysmal season this season. I forget their record, but they essentially, I think most of their players before this season, they just all transferred because they knew that Colorado was going to be really, really bad. And so when Deion Sanders went in, and when Coach Prime went in, and that viral video of him saying like, pack your bags because I'm bringing my luggage with me, and it's Louis, basically telling everybody to enter the transfer portal. Everybody was mad about that video, but it's him being transparent. It's like, dude, like if he's gonna bring his transfers, if he's gonna bring players that are much better than the players that Colorado has right now, why not? Like that's what college is all about at this point. College football is all about transferring. It's all about getting the top recruits. It's all about, I mean, switching up on schools, like whatever, dude. I mean, that's the culture nowadays. So let Coach Prime be Coach Prime, right? And let him do him, and bring his stuff to and bring his his Louis luggage to Colorado. I love it. I thought that video was great. Again, I mean, it's kind of a rough way to introduce yourself to the team, but again, this Colorado team sucks. Like, I think a lot of, again, like you said, Tyler, like a lot of people that don't really know football, they don't know that Colorado was so bad before Coach Prime, said that he was going to coach there. And so now he's coming along, and he's gonna bring his guys with him, and I think it's great. I think that meeting that he had with Colorado, a lot of people kind of misinterpreted it a little bit, and it came across as mean, but like, dude, that's what college football is nowadays, and that's what it's all about. So yeah.
Now, when you mentioned Deion Sanders about the little luggage thing and the Louis thing and all the transfers, can you tell us about the transfer portal? Because I know you deal with that too.
Yeah.
And for me being old school, I don't like the transfer portal, because then I made a video about JT Daniels transferring to 4 universities in 6 years, Now he transferred from what USC to somewhere else, and then to West Virginia. Now he's going to transfer to Rice and all this other stuff. Please tell us how you feel about the transfer.
Yeah.
I don't like the transfer portal, especially. I don't mind the transfer portal, but the way it's like not really like a rules. It's like you can transfer. Like, what's wrong with the transfer portal?
Yeah. So essentially, like the transfer portal became a thing in 2018, and essentially what it is, it's kind of cool. It's so like before 2018, if you were to transfer as a college athlete, like you would have to take a year off. You would have to get so much of this paperwork done. You would have to like basically have a connection with another school on your own. Like you would have to build that connection personally with the other school. You wouldn't really have a way to contact another school without like having their number in your phone, basically. But with the transfer portal now, it's basically just like an online, like this huge online database where if you want to enter the transfer portal, you enter your name into this online database. All your information is in there, your contact information, all the information of like schools basically are in there too. So you can contact schools as well. And so essentially what a lot of athletes do, which I think this year was like upwards of 1,500 college football players entered within the first like week or two of the transfer portal opening, which I think the transfer portal opened December 5th, and then it goes until January 18th. So that's when it closes. It's like a 45-day window where you can enter your name in the transfer portal and then get in contact with literally anybody you want. You can get in contact with other players, other schools, whatever. Schools can contact you. It's just like a free for all basically. And again, it's great for players being able to make connections with other teams. But then there is that aspect of like, well, what if you enter the transfer portal? Then you've given up on your former team. And then what if your name kind of just gets lost in the mix? Because there's so many guys in the transfer portal. There's so many guys that get better careers out of it. And then there's other guys that go to the transfer portal, that are coming from a good school, and then they kind of fall down the list because they haven't shown anything on film, or they haven't really had, a very good season because they've been at a school that's been struggling recently. So it's like these really high talent guys sometimes are falling to the bottom and kind of getting lost in the transfer portal. And I think that that's probably like the curse part of it, but I think it's more of a blessing for guys because again, these guys want to advance their careers as much as possible. Like I said earlier, it's like college football is a whole different thing nowadays. It's again, the old school days are kind of out of here. And like you, Tyler, like I've been watching college football for my whole life. So like, it's definitely more of a switch because it's like, you never know where these guys are going. It's almost like professional football where, they're signing with different teams every year and you never really know where one guy is going to end up next. But I think overall it's a pretty good thing for college football. It just becomes a little bit hectic and it's a little bit hard to keep up with. And then I think there's also a second window in May. I think May 1st to May 15th. It's another like 2-week period where the transfer portal opens back up and you can enter your name in there if you haven't signed with a team already in the December-January window. So so guys get kind of like a second chance to transfer there. And then I think schools, like there's a couple other rules about it. Certain schools have a certain amount of, I think all schools have a certain amount of transfers that they are able to give scholarships to. And this was before the transfer portal. So like before the transfer portal, you weren't allowed to give more than, I think, 25 scholarships to transfer guys. Like you weren't allowed to have more than 25 guys come in on scholarship that were already playing college football that were just transfers. You had to save most of your scholarships for high school athletes. Now with the transfer portal, ever since it opened up, I think actually this rule was made in 2021. Ever since 2021, you can now have as many transfer students as you want. So like, I think the most amount of scholarships that any program can give to high school athletes and transfer athletes per year is 85. So it's capped at 85 scholarships per year that every college gets to give to a combined high school students and transfer students in college. Now that 25 cap on transfer students, that's gone. So you can bring in 40 transfer guys, but then you only have 45 scholarships left for high school guys. And so that kind of like, you kind of got to balance it that way. I don't really know. Again, I just started with UVA football, so I don't know how many transfers we're getting. I know that we've had A few guys already commit to transfer to us, and we've already had guys that are leaving, like our quarterback Brennan Armstrong. He hit the transfer portal like right when it opened up. So yeah, so it's been kind of cool to see where guys are going. Which guys are leaving UVA, which guys are coming to UVA. It's really cool to kind of see a whole change in that sense, but it also makes things really hard on the coaching staffs because again, coaching staffs don't really have relationships with players anymore. Their relationship with a player is, yeah, okay, you're going to be here for a year and then you may be out the next year. And that's literally the NFL. Like that is NFL football basically at the college level, at the education level, which I think is a little bit questionable. But again, it's how it is nowadays, and it's not really going to change. And I feel like it's really indicative of kind of sports changing as a whole. So,
Yeah, well, I'm gonna tell you this. We're basically I'm gonna get into some NFL, but basically we're in week 18. Now, before I get into all these playoff scenarios, I want to know who is on the hot seat as far as head coaches. And my number one is Cliff Kingsbury. That's my number one.
oh yeah,
Who do you think is on the hot seat this year? Name like any coach you could think of that's on the hot seat. Number one in my head is Cliff Kingsbury. That's number one. Losing
yeah,
record at Texas Tech with Pat Mahomes, and you can't win with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Cliff Kingsbury is I think he's always kind of been a fraud. I mean, Arizona loved him because he coached Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech, but that doesn't mean that he's a good coach, right? Like that doesn't mean that he's an NFL caliber coach. So that I think that they're starting to see that
40 at Texas Tech, 35 and 40.
Yeah, and that too. It's like he had a losing record, so like makes no sense. But yeah, that's a really good one. I think another one that I've seen kind of a lot, and this is kind of, I don't know, this may be like kind of a cop out answer, but it's Lovie Smith. I mean, the Texans, like they haven't been doing anything like at all, and so I think, I mean, they had a all right season this season, and like, I mean, given the talent they have on their team, but I think that, I don't know, the Texans are one of those teams where they're kind of in their Browns/Jaguars era where like they just go through head coach after head coach after head coach and they can't seem to get anything going. And so again, it's kind of sad because they recently hired Lovie Smith, I'm pretty sure, but I think it was this year actually. But yeah, but I think that he's probably going to be out just because, right, like the Texans, they need something going for them, and they just haven't gotten it for the past, I don't even know how many years. But yeah, I mean, ever since Deshaun Watson left, it's been kind of kind of a crapshoot down there, and it's it's just been. I mean, even when he was there, the whole thing happened, and then he took a year off from football, and then now they got Davis Mills starting, but then they've also got some other like bald dude starting. It's like it's a mess
Kyle
down
Allen,
there.
I think.
Kyle Allen, that's the guy. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Wow. Well, I think what the Houston Texans messed up on is when Bill O'Brien thought he could be Bill Belichick and be the GM and said, "Let's trade away DeAndre Hopkins." Now I don't know why you were trading away DeAndre Hopkins, who was the best receiver in the NFL. Let's go trade DeAndre Hopkins, and then J.J. Watt leaves, and like once he started off 0-4 during that 2020 year, he was gone. Like that's what led down here. Now they try to get, I think, the Patriots GM like Nick Cassera was now there now and all this other stuff. I'm just like, dude, I believe he's kind of on the hot seat, but I think they set him up for failure, dude. Like, really, you thought Davis Mills is going to be the future quarterback? Davis Mills out of what, Stanford? Like,
yeah, he went to Stanford. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm makes me sick. But I think what's another hit? I think Josh McDaniels might be on the hot seat. And here's why.
Oh yeah.
You bench Derek Carr, okay? You signed him last year to like 3-year, $140 million extension. Now you bench him the last 2 games because he had the most interceptions. I think Dak Prescott's the most interceptions right now. But after the Steelers game, when he threw 3 interceptions, I think it was on Christmas Eve or something, they benched him. Devontae Adams, he went because of Derek Carr. That's his best friend. Yep. Now he starts Jarrett Stidham, who's a former Patriot, 4th-round draft pick out of Auburn. He was the COVID year of Jarrett Stidham was bad. I mean, the dude had back problems, of course. But I think a weird scenario, you don't have to agree with this. I think that Devontae Adams dips Las Vegas and goes somewhere else. just because of the whole Derek Carr situation. Now, reports that came out that he wants some decision factor with Josh McDaniels as far as a quarterback for the future, but I just don't see if Josh McDaniels will allow it because he coached Tom Brady, so I guess it's hard to find the next Tom Brady. But what do you think about the mention of Derek Carr and is Josh McDaniels going to be in Vegas next year? I just don't think he is. It might be yes for me and no, but it's just he's gotten fired from Denver. I mean, he thought he can get Tim Tebow. That was the worst decision in America. Tim Tebow, yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The Josh McDaniels situation, I kind of saw this coming. Again, I mean, he did a great job in New England with that offense for years, but I don't think he's a head coach. He's more on the quiet side. I've heard that like in the locker room, he's not really a guy that's gonna like get you hype and and be a head coach and be a leader. He's more of a guy that's like X's and O's. He's good at he knows so much about football. Like he is a mastermind at the game of football, but he's not a leader guy. Like he's not a guy that's gonna be able to get that locker room together. And so, do I think that this had a lot of effect on the whole Derek Carr situation? I don't know. I think Derek Carr might just be like the last of his struggles because I mean he's really struggled all the time as a quarterback. Like he's had flashes of greatness and he's had games that make us think like, oh wow, he's actually being the quarterback that he's supposed to be coming out of Fresno State, such a small school, but such a great talent. But it's like, I don't know. I mean, I think him having Josh McDaniels as his head coach this year, everybody was like, okay, he needs to prove himself, right? Derek Carr needs to prove himself this year. He's got Devontae Adams now, his best friend from Fresno State. Like they're going to be great. And if they're not great, then Derek Carr sucks and he needs to leave. I think that story is panning out perfectly now, but I think you're right with the Josh McDaniels thing. Like, I think that's what we need to be looking at more is like Josh McDaniels. I don't think he's a head coach. I think he's great as an offensive coordinator. He's great as an assistant coach somewhere that's going to help you win, but he's not going to lead you to the playoffs or lead you to a Super Bowl win.
No, and that leads me to something else. Us being Patriots fans, I want him to come back and get fired because Patriots are 8-8 right now, and Matt Patricia is the worst play call I've ever met. He is bad.
So bad.
He is bad. I'm gonna name 2 scenarios. I can name 6 scenarios. I watch all Patriot games on Sunday Ticket, which YouTube TV bought. So thank God I ain't gotta buy a subscription for that one because I mean that costs like $30 for 3 months. But there was this when I was watching that Thanksgiving game against the Vikings, and just he wanted to throw the ball on 3rd and 1 and go 5 wide. And Mac Jones completely missed the throw. And then against Vegas, we're at the 1-yard line, the first quarter. He says, let's throw the ball on 4th and goal. I said, bro, what? Are you kidding me? We tell me you get 3 points off throwing the ball 3 times. I think Matt Patricia, and you see Mac Jones' frustration. Like, what's wrong with the Patriots this year? Are we like the Chicago Bears in 2016, where the Bears were 12-4, they relied on the defense, and Mitch Trubisky scored enough points to win the game? I have a feeling we're doing the same thing, and I'm just getting frustrated with the offense. Like, okay, I'm confident we're gonna make the playoffs. I'm confident we're gonna beat Buffalo, but we have to win on defense and special teams. Did you see that Jets game? The second Jets game, it was 3-3 until Marcus Jones hits a touchdown. I'm like, wow, we're bad. I said we're bad. How do you feel about the Patriots at home? I say that we suck. We just suck. Like, I almost don't care at this point if we make the playoffs or not. We're bad. How do you feel about the Patriots?
Yeah. I almost want us to not make the playoffs so that we don't have to face embarrassment in the first round. Like, because if we do make the playoffs, we're gonna lose. Like, there's no other way of saying it. So I think it's the same. It's like the same. So I have a couple friends that are Steelers fans, and like it's the same way with them. If they make the playoffs, like they might have a great run, and they might win this last game. I think they're playing the Browns. They might win this last game and make the playoffs.
I'm going to that game, by the way. I am going to that game. Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm leaving tomorrow. Awesome. I'm going to that game. So yeah, for free.
Let's go. Well, there you go. But but I mean, even if the Steelers make it to the playoffs, they're going to lose too. So I think either way, with both of those AFC teams, I mean, either way, I think that both teams are going to lose. And the Patriots, like you said, Matt Patricia, just bad, like a bad play caller, doesn't know what he's doing. We have a great running game. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, I think he is the running back of the future. I think Damian Harris is a pretty good back, but he gets injured a lot.
back and hamstring problems. Always
Yeah,
been him, back and hamstrings. I'm like,
all the
Jesus
time.
Christ.
Yeah, he's always having injury problems, and Ramondre Stevenson is a guy that's always ready to go. Even if he does get injured, it's like he's out for a quarter of the time that Damian Harris is out. So yeah, I think that our running game is great. Our defense is great as always. I mean, we've always had a great defense, so don't really need to worry about that. But I think you were onto something with Marcus Jones. I mean, that punt return for a touchdown was great. That made it 10-3, and we won. In the last seconds of the game. But also, like, he had his first ever touch on offense was a touchdown too. Like his on that screen pass, he had a screen
Mm-hmm.
pass, and like that was his first ever touch on offense, and he took it for 6. And I was like, dude, this guy's amazing. Like we need to put him on offense.
Well,
Jeez, I mean, like Jacoby Myers, like okay, fine. Nelson Aguilar, fine, but like, dude, get Marcus, yeah, whatever, Marcus Jones out there and put him on offense, put him in the slot. Like that's the guy that we need.
dude, Nelson Aguilar, every time I throw the ball deep, Mac Jones misses him too much. And then second
Yeah,
of all,
yeah,
we're not getting as much play from our tight ends, Johnny Smith and Hunter Henry, like we did last year. That's why I like our last year team, because Mac Jones was confident, not turning the ball over. And this year, he gets hurt, high ankle sprain, all this other stuff. And I think the reason why we're so messed up is because that last play of the Raiders game that I'm just furious about. I don't know
oh
what
my
in the
god,
world we were doing right there. I said, that is the worst play in football. I said, I sat there and watched the game on Sunday. I'm sitting there looking like, okay, go to overtime. He throws it back. I said, what do you think Mac Jones is going to do? Outrun 2 defenders? And they say he caught the ball. Then he runs it. I'm sitting
yeah,
there slamming things on the floor. I'm like, did we just lose the game after we were down 17-3? We scored 24-17. We had to run it back out of was it San Diego State or something that was just burning him all of a sudden. I can't
yeah,
remember his name for right now. But then it's like, so the Raiders are known for going fourth quarter leads when it's like 13 or more. Okay.
yeah.
And then we're just doing flea flickers in a tie game. Like, people can blame and say Lamar Jackson did it bad. Okay, well, that's different. But when Jacoby Myers threw that joke back and then admitted at press conference, I didn't know he was there. I'm looking at him like, is this a video game to you? Like, I'm surprised. I'm saying that's what that loss is going to hurt us when we don't make the playoff. It's that loss. And then also, I'm going to say the Cincinnati loss too, because we got torched by Cincinnati. We got
Yeah, that was
torched.
bad.
I mean, it won't even close. Joe Burrow was looking like he was at LSU. He was torching. He said, dang, don't touch them. I'm sitting here looking like we supposed to have the best defense in the NFL. But I like the way you played the second half. But I mean, the Ramondre Stevenson fumble, I mean, it should have stopped forward progress, but oh my God. I mean, it was that fumble, and then Nick Folk, of course, all of a sudden missing the extra points. Like, what the fuck? Like, what is wrong with us?
Yeah,
Like, dude, I don't know. But I'm going to tell you about this, though. The playoff seeding. I'm going to start with the AFC. So now you got Kansas City Chiefs at 13-3. I think they get the first round bye because the Buffalo Bills and Cincinnati game was suspended. Prayers to the guy. He's gotten better, but they just weren't in the feeling. Then you got number 2 seed at Buffalo at 12-3, 3 Cincinnati 11-4, 4 Jacksonville at 8-8, 5 Chargers 10-6, Baltimore 10-6. Of course, the sorry Patriots at 8-8. I don't know why we're even on here, but my prediction is Jacksonville beats Tennessee on Saturday.
yeah,
First year head coach Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne. The best pickup, I think, in free agency was Zay Jones. I don't know why the Raiders got rid of Zay Jones. I mean, he was a dog.
yeah,
I think the playoff picture stays the same. But the Patriots do have to beat the Bills to make the playoffs. If not, the Jets have to beat the Dolphins and the Steelers have to lose or something like that. But
yeah.
I think the playoff picture stays the same, but I don't want the Patriots to lose. And then when I go to the Browns Steelers game on Sunday, I gotta hope they lose. So, what you think the playoff picture is going to stay the same in the AFC?
Yeah, yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think the game on Saturday night, that Jaguars Titans game, I think that's going to be a really good game. I'm glad that they set that as a night game, so it's prime time. But I do think that the Jags are going to win. They're just on a tear. Like, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is showing who he's actually like meant to be, which is a great quarterback in the NFL. I've been saying this ever since he entered the league. I mean, I loved him in college when he was at Clemson. I watched him at the Elite 11 before he even went to Clemson. Like before he was in
Yes.
college,
Mm-hmm.
I watched the Elite 11 with him. It was DTR, Dorian Thompson Robinson.
Oh,
They had
yes.
that Ole Miss quarterback, Matt Corral. Yeah, Matt Corral. They had
Mm.
him on there too.
Nope.
Like that Elite 11 was crazy. And from then on, I knew Trevor Lawrence was going to be a dog. So I saw this coming, but yeah, I think that Jacksonville is going to be good from here on out. I don't know if they're, I mean, assuming they do make the playoffs at that 4 seed, they'll be playing the 5 seed, which I forget who you said it was right now, but
Chargers.
I mean, yeah, the Chargers, that might be a good game too, but I don't know. And the Chargers kind of suck in any important game ever. So like Jacksonville might take that game too. So it's like, I don't know. Jacksonville might make it to the divisional. We'll see. But yeah, I'm really happy for them though, because they're another team that like ever since the Patriots beat them, or ever since what was it? They beat us. No, we beat them in the AFC Conference
2017.
Championship back in like, yeah, 2017. And they had a crazy year that year with Blake Bortles and everything. But like
Oh
ever since
Lord.
then, they've just been terrible. So
Man.
it's great to see them back on it. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I agree. I think it stays the same on this one. Now I'm going to talk about the Ravens real quick because Lamar Jackson has not played, and they struggled at Tyler Huntley at quarterback. And when you make the Ravens pass the ball, they're not successful. I watched that game, the Steelers versus the Ravens on Sunday night, and they had a 10
Yeah.
point lead, but the Ravens blew about fourth quarter leads like 4 or 5 times this year. Like, especially the worst one was the Miami game. Like, you have 35-14
Yeah.
and Miami come back and win. I said, what? And I was and I wanted the Steelers to lose so that they get knocked out the playoffs, and then the Patriots is worried about the Patriots. Now, the thing is, the Ravens let the Steelers hang in there. Now they play the Bengals. Like, what's going on with Lamar Jackson? Like, I know he's an injury prone quarterback, but then earlier this season, he won a $250 million guaranteed contract like Deshaun Watson. So what do you think about Lamar Jackson? Is he going to be the NFL long term with all these leg injuries he's having? Do you think he's going to be in here long term? What do you think they're going to do? Are they going to franchise tag him? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what's happened this season. I think that they're holding him out. I don't even think that I think he's healthy enough to play even right now, but they're just holding him out for the playoffs. Like they don't want to take any chances with him right now, so that because they're already in the playoffs, right? So like they've already, I mean, I think so. I mean, I'm pretty sure that they're already in the playoffs. They're like what,
10-6.
10-6 right now? Yeah. So they've already made the playoffs, so they're fine. But then you got right the whole contract situation with Lamar Jackson. You don't know if he's going to be playing there next year, and I think like any sane person would pay the man. I think he's a great quarterback. I mean, at one point, I mean, he was the MVP back in what 2020 or 2019 or something like that. 2020, I think it was. He was the MVP. So like, you got to pay him. I mean, if he's a league MVP at some point, you got to pay him. That's what the quarterbacks are getting paid nowadays. So if he's going to try to take a max contract or whatever you want to call it, he's going to take it. But like a guy like Russell Wilson, who got paid the same amount by the Broncos, who is absolutely sucking, who sucked for 2 years in Seattle before he even went to the Broncos. It's like Lamar Jackson is at least good. Like he's at least shown that he's been good for the past 3 or so years. So I think that they need to pay him. I don't know what they're waiting on. Obviously they have other plans of some sort, but do I think that they'll pay him? Yes. Do I? Well, I hope they'll pay him, but I don't really know. It's kind of hard to get a read on the situation right now because if they haven't agreed to anything yet, like I don't know if they will this offseason. But yeah, I mean, he's a great player. The way that he plays, a lot of people question his sustainability in the NFL, like whether he'll be able to actually play for a long time with with how much he runs, with how physical of a player he is. But I mean, I think he's just getting better. Especially as a passer. I mean, he's always been a good runner, but he's been getting better every year as a passer. He's proved people wrong that he's not just a running back, right? Like everybody's saying that about Justin Fields now. I think Justin Fields is in the same exact situation. He's on a team with no wide receivers. They've got a really tough situation. They don't have nearly as good of a running game as the Ravens do. So like, I think that I don't know, him and Justin Fields, I feel are like very similar players in that regard. In the same, or in the sense of like how the public views them. Obviously, they've got their differences and they've got things that they're better than one another at. But like, I think Lamar, in terms of should the Baltimore Ravens pay him, yes, but will they do it? That's still up in the air. This is one of those things that like I can't really get a read on, and I can't really say like if I think that they will or not. But like I said, by now, if they haven't paid him, I don't know if they're going to do it. So,
Well, I do agree. I do agree with you on that one, and I'm gonna get back to the Pacers real quick. Well, if they win, that's good to make the playoffs. But look at this playoff picture. Whether they win or lose, and have the Steelers lose and the Jets, beat the Dolphins because Tua is not playing again. But the Jets
yeah.
are bad. I don't trust the Jets. But look how this playoff picture is saying that we're gonna have to play Buffalo again, like we did last year. Meaning play Buffalo 3 times. That's what the playoff picture is saying right now. I looked at that jump. I said, we got to play Buffalo possibly 3 times in the last 2 years. Like, it has got to be at Buffalo. I'm like, no, we don't do good at Buffalo. We
Yeah.
don't do good at all. But I'm going to switch to the NFC now. I think a lot of people say the NFC ain't really that good. There's 3 teams. I think the AFC is better than the NFC with more talent. But you got the Eagles, #1 seed at 13-3. San Francisco, 2 seed at 12-4. Now, remember, I kept telling you about San Francisco. I said, you keep talking about that third-string quarterback, Brock Purdy. I said, ladies and gentlemen, they winning on defense. They had Christian McCaffrey. And once Debo Samuel come back from that high ankle sprain, I said,
Oh yeah.
don't be surprised if the 49ers go back to the NFC Championship game. Then you have the Minnesota Vikings at 12-4. First-year head coach Kevin O'Connor, who was a former backup for the Patriots, with Bray, I think it was back in 08 or 09. Then you got Tampa Buccaneers at 8-8, who barely won the division, but Tom Brady's Tom Brady. Then you got them sorry, nauseating Dallas Cowboys. I don't like the Cowboys. 12-4. They still got a possibility to even win the division if the Eagles lose to the Giants. Then you got #6 of the Giants at 9-6-1. First year head coach Brian Daboll's done a very good job, but I don't think Daniel Jones is a future. They call him Vanilla Vic or Vanilla Ice. And I'm like, wait a second. The guy can't throw the ball. You need to stop that nonsense. The Giants win on defense and running the football. 7, you got the Seattle Seahawks at 8-8. I don't think they're going to beat the Rams. You don't know what type of team you get with the Rams. You know they got Baker Mayfield, but also we have a Sunday night game that's trending. You got the Lions at 8-8 versus the Green Bay Packers. Now the Lions,
Yeah.
remember, had started off 1-7, and now they're 8-8. I think that loss that really hurts when they lost to the Carolina Panthers. I tried to put a bet on DraftKings, and it went sideways. Lucky I only put $5. I tried to do a 13 pick parlay to win $5,000, but I missed 3 of them. But
Oh wow.
Detroit and Green Bay, both teams fighting for a playoff spot. Now, Green Bay under head coach Matt LaFleur in his 4 years is 16-0 in the month of December. 16-0. They hadn't lost a game in December. In this game, I'm taking the Green Bay Packers to the 7th seed, and I think nobody wants to play Green Bay in the playoffs. Now, if they play in the playoffs, they would have to play the San Francisco 49ers. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, look, this game that's coming up this weekend against Detroit, it's in Lambeau, right? I think 3 of their past 4 games have been in Lambeau. And so, like they've had home field advantage for this latter part of the season, which is pretty lucky for them. But I mean, they're okay. They were 4-8 at one point. Like let's just think about that. Green Bay Packers were 4-8 at one point this season. They've come all the way back and they're about to make the playoffs, which I think you're right. I think they will. I don't know if Detroit has it in them. And even if they do, they're not as much of a threat in the playoffs as the Packers are, as Aaron Rodgers is. We always talk about Tom Brady being great in the playoffs, and like Aaron Rodgers he's known as being not great in the playoffs, right? Not being able to make a Super Bowl because he loses in every NFC championship he goes to practically. But it's like he's still a 4-time MVP. So like there's some magic there. There's always some magic there. I think with how hot the Packers are right now, with the win streak that they're on, and well, just how many games that they've won over the past 5-6 weeks, like I think they'll be able to get it done. And then I mean in the playoffs, playing against San Francisco first in the wild card round, like oh man, that sucks. But I mean, hey, it's like that's what you got to do. As if you're a 7 seed, you're playing against the 2 seeds, so it's like that's what it takes. And if I mean, they lost to San Francisco, right? Last year what was it, divisional round
Yeah,
or something like that.
it was in Lambeau. It
Yeah.
was like 10 to the score was like 10 to set. No, 13 to 10. It was a low scoring game.
Yeah.
Like Devontae Adams couldn't get open. Green Bay offense just went flat, I think, in the fourth quarter. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
13 to 10.
Yeah, exactly. So like the Green Bay offense without Devontae Adams, are they going to be able to somehow beat the 49ers when the 49ers look even better than they did last year? No. But I mean, you never know. It's like it's a crazy league, but yeah, I think that even though we're saying the Packers are going to get through to the playoffs, like yeah, they're probably going to get knocked out pretty bad in the first round. So
I'm gonna say this though. Now I think they have a good wide receiver. I mean, Alan Lazard's the guy, but Christian Watson, like
yeah,
he got potential.
he's a
But then
dog.
I
Yeah.
think when you watch the Green Bay Packers, I think Matt LaFleur just gets too cute with his play calling. He like
Mhm.
a lot of motion and plays, and I think he doesn't use his running backs enough. We got Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. They should be combined at least about 40 touches a game. But
Oh
each of them
yeah.
get 20. But I know Green
Mhm.
Bay is a passing offense, and Matt LaFleur thinks he's what the next Mike McCarthy. Dude, nobody knew who Matt LaFleur was. I mean, he was under Kyle Shanahan, but I think at first he was an offensive coordinator for Tennessee before he became the head coach. I guess
Yeah.
whatever magical season he did with Ryan Tannehill, and now all of a sudden, Ryan Tannehill's injury prone. I the problem I have with the Packers, dude, is that damn defense. That's the problem I have.
Mhm.
I think they should go fire Joe Barry as defensive coordinator. I don't know why they act like the defense was all good. They beat Minnesota and all this other stuff. But then when I watch Green Bay's defense, is good then it's bad. Like I don't think that's gonna even make it to the Super Bowl for the Green Bay Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers is on some other stuff mentally as well. So I'm just not sure what I expect from Green Bay when it comes to San Francisco. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That defense, you're right. It's like it's interesting because they came into the season ranked as one of the highest defenses in the NFL, right? And then this season, they've kind of fallen off a little bit. They lost Zadarius Smith in free agency last year, who was a great rush guy around the edge. And other than that, I don't think that they lost many guys. Their corners are pretty good. I mean, they've got Jair Alexander, who's one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. They got Darnell Savage, I think, at safety, who's also made a lot of good plays. They also have that other cornerback. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name. But he's had a really good year this year as well. I think he's like number 27 or something like that on that defense. I keep on forgetting his name. But yeah, I mean, he's had a great year as well. So like they've got talent on that defense, but again, it's just I think it's one of those things where like I mean, we always say like football, every aspect of the game affects every other aspect of the game, right? You got offense, defense, special teams, all three aspects affect all the other three aspects, right? So if that offense isn't be able to stay on the field, if they're going 3 and out every other drive, it's like, well, the defense is going to get tired, right? And so no matter how much talent you have on the defense, if you're not able to stay on the field as an offense, and if you're not able to keep the ball in Aaron Rodgers' hands, that defense is going to get tired. They're going to kind of lose confidence. I think that's a lot of what's been happening this season in terms of kind of what's been hurting this defense. So
Last question. How can uh how can people reach you on social media? And just as far as starting off, not just YouTube, but just in general on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever. Give
yeah,
Totem Pole Nation and everybody in America some advice on how to start a sports podcast. Like, what you have to have and what not to do.
yeah. So first of all, on socials, on Instagram, it's Vozar 14. That's my personal Instagram. We don't have an Instagram for our podcast, but then on Twitter, it's firstdown.rd pod. It's kind of like or firstdown.rd.pod. It's kind of a long name, but that's our Twitter handle. And then Twitter and Instagram are really the only two that you can reach us on. That those are the best platforms in my opinion for sports social media. So you can reach us on there. You can also send an email to firstdownrundown@gmail.com if you want to, all one word. If you have any like suggestions or if you just want to say what's up, I made an email for our podcast. So again, that's firstdownrundown@gmail.com. And then in terms of, your other question about giving advice for people that want to start a sports podcast or really any podcast of that matter, it doesn't take a lot. A lot of people think that you need special equipment. A lot of people think that you need like you know, you need to spend a lot of money on this and that. It's like, dude, you can start out without a mic, right? I started out without a mic. I think actually no, I started with a mic, but it was like $20. It was like from Target, and I started with that. And you know, I was able to kind of, you know, save up for a better one like this. And I mean, even this one's like it's like $60 off of Amazon. You know, there's podcasters on like Barstool Sports, and you got Joe Rogan podcast and everything like that. You know, they're using like $300 mics. You don't need all that. You don't need a whole setup or whatever. Literally, you can just sit in your bedroom and record on your laptop, or even on your, you can record a voice memos on your phone and then upload it to whatever, you know, podcasting website that you use to kind of get it out to all platforms. That's another thing. A lot of people are always like, oh, how do you apply to get your podcast on Spotify or Apple or whatever like that? You don't really apply. I use rss.com. It's just an abbreviation, RSS. And so just look that up. It's just like you basically just sign up, you submit your podcast, and they kind of approve it. And then they send it out to Apple and Spotify for you. So like, essentially, if you want your podcast on either of those platforms, you just create an account, and then they do it all for you. So you make an account on RSS, and then once you get approved by RSS and by Spotify and Apple, well, I think if you get approved by RSS, you're already approved by Spotify and Apple. So once you upload your podcast to rss.com, then they send it out to Spotify and Apple. And that's kind of, you know, I feel like that's probably the best thing to do at first. It's like a subscription at first. I think for the first month it's free, but then it's a subscription. It's like $100 a year or something like that, or it's like $10 a month. But if you pay for it, like if you pay like a one-time fee for the year, it's less money. And if you know you're going to be consistent with it, that's the better option to go with. So yeah, I mean, it takes a little bit of money, the whole subscription thing, but again, if you're passionate about it and if you've got the funds for it, like I would say definitely do it. It's you know, it's a great time, and it's a great way to kind of just use your pastime as something productive, to not just, you know, sit around and do nothing, but it's like it's something that's going to keep your brain going, keep your brain moving, and obviously keep you engaged in sports if you really love it. And then again, if you're not planning on like starting a sports podcast, if you want to start a motivational podcast or podcast about like, I don't know, like cars or something like that, then yeah, go ahead and do it. It's the same thing, same process. So I hope you guys were able to kind of get something out of that. I know it was a little bit confusing, but yeah, that's how I started mine. And again, I've had my ups and downs with it. So if you have trouble with it at first, if you have trouble with staying motivated and kind of, you know, you go in and out of phases where you don't want to do it and where you do want to do it, that's completely fine. That's completely normal. It's tough to keep up with something like this, especially with, you know, getting out content as often as you would like. It kind of gets a little bit tiring at some point, but you just got to push through those moments and, you know that there's a brighter side. So that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of my last word.
Well, I say never. I appreciate my boy being on Totem Pole Sports. Thank you, Totem Pole Nation. Like, comment, and subscribe. But also hit up my boy on Spotify, Instagram, whatever, Apple Podcasts. FirstDown, RunDown is gonna be one of the best podcasts in America. I'm gonna hop on the show.
Let's go.
Then he's gonna hop in my show. I think collaboration is gonna work. It's gonna do big things better. Just making sure to tune in for the next episode. The last episode, if you want to watch it, is December 28th. They're talking about the Pats and the Patriots going opposite ways. Of course, it's college football semifinal. Whatever the next episode is, stay tuned. Follow this stuff. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be better. Like I said, I also got a playlist that I just started on how to start a YouTube channel as well. So basically, the things he says, what I said, but take his advice and get motivated. That's how I got motivated, because of this guy. So you can't get motivated.
Let's go. I appreciate
what else
that.
to tell you? But you know, FirstDown, RunDown, best podcast in America. So thank you, Totem Pole Nation. Our goal is 50K, but can we get to 21K subscribers first? So you know, we appreciate everything that you've done. We've only been doing this for what, 4 months, 3 months? I can't remember. I just post a lot of content, but thank you, Totem Pole Nation, and we'll be seeing you later on.